a lot of people say they have seen my impact in the industry, which is not really anything I intended for. I think the industry was due for a change, and I was just one of the people who got to act as a vessel to help push them in that way. But I think it would have eventually come around regardless of my involvement.
Welcome to the RV Entrepreneur Podcast, the weekly show for nomads, work campers, RVers, and entrepreneurs looking to earn a living or build a business while enjoying the RV lifestyle. This week's host is Jim Nelson. Let's settle in and enjoy the RV Entrepreneur Podcast, brought to you by RV Life.
Welcome back to the RV Entrepreneur Podcast. I'm Jim at RV Life, and today we're talking with someone who has truly flipped the script, literally, on what RV living and entrepreneurship can really look like. Cortni Armstrong, aka the Flippin Nomad, didn't set out to start a lifestyle business. She was just trying to keep a roof over her head. But through grit, creative problem solving, and by sharing her own journey online with authenticity, Cortni has built a booming RV renovation brand that's as bold and uncompromising as her design style. In this conversation, we unpack how her business evolved from a Craigslist RV and white cabinets to luxury custom builds. We dive into her organic growth with brand partnerships, including Keystone and GMC, and clients asking for everything from wine chillers to custom cat litter nooks. And we explore a recurring theme we've seen from many successful entrepreneurs on this show: authenticity. As you'll hear, when you lead from the heart, people notice. And in Cortni's case, that raw, real approach didn't just create a following, it built a movement. We dive into all the dirty details right after this brief message.
Hey RVers, let's be real. Your RV shower head isn't great. And even if you swapped it out for something better, chances are it's just a shinier version of the same old thing. And if you're really lucky, those stiff hoses kind of let you get wet, but definitely not where you want it. That's where WaterPick comes in. A global leader in water technology, they've designed the Transform RV showerhead to change the way you shower on the road, making it easier and more efficient to shower in tight RV spaces. While other RV showerheads have limited spray adjustments, the Transform RV's unique 360-degree pivoting head allows you to customize to any spray angle without having to remove it from the bracket. This means you can reach your desired spray area and shower with both hands free. This shower head doesn't just work better, it feels better. It's engineered to deliver powerful, consistent water flow. Its multiple spray settings are optimized to get the most out of your water tank. And with the new trickle switch, you can conserve water without that shocking blast of cold or hot water when you turn it back on. It's available in white, chrome, and nickel. The WaterPick Transform RV showerhead is ready to upgrade your RV shower. Head over to Amazon and check it out now.
Cortni, thank you so much for joining me. I look forward to hearing about all you're doing as the Flippin Nomad. So welcome to the RV Entrepreneur.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Oh, I'm excited to talk to you. I've heard about you. I've seen some of your amazing work. But first, I got to start off by saying this is technically the RV Life Entrepreneur Podcast. So I ask all my guests two really quick questions. We'll get into it deeper later. But just trying to get to know you, when were you first introduced to the RV life, and how might that be different now?
I have been a full-time RVer for 11 years now, and my story is a little different than others. It was just a way for me to keep a roof over my head. There's a lot more to the story than that, but I don't have the standard story of, this beautiful story of like selling everything and hitting the road and everything just being magical. Mine was out of sheer desperation.
Okay. And we'll get into a little bit more detail about how that evolved and what's become of it. But because of it, you've become quite an entrepreneur. So what do you think it takes to be an entrepreneur? What does it mean? What does entrepreneur mean to you?
It takes a certain level of crazy, a certain level of not being in touch with the reality. Sometimes it feels like a lot of grit, a lot of wearing a lot of different hats, a lot of analyzing. I've always had the entrepreneurial spirit, but now that I'm in it, I'm like, yeah, this is a lot. There's a lot of balls to juggle and a lot of mental gymnastics that goes along with it.
There are a lot of balls in the air at all times, especially with what you're doing and what how it's grown. So let's get into it a little deeper here. For anyone who might not know yet or might not have seen your work, who is the Flippin Nomad, in your own words?
That's kind of a good question. So the Flipping Nomad started as me personally. I was the Flipping Nomad, and that was my Instagram handle, just because I thought the name was funny. I really had no intentions of growing a legit business out of it, but the business is that we customize and renovate RV interiors for clients. So the early days, we were actually, quote, flipping the rigs where we would buy them, renovate them, and then sell them. But now we just work with rigs that clients already own. So the Flipping Nomad kind of started as me personally, but now it's kind of morphed into like a legit LLC with a commercial lease and team members and a whole legit business.
Fantastic. So we're talking about RV renovations and remodels. And tell me real quick about the ideal customer. If it started as a way to make money and buy an old RV and flip it and make some money, what has that evolved into, and who's coming to you for these renovations?
Yeah, that's a good question, because it actually has been quite the evolution of clients and what people are interested in. So in the early days, like being around 2017 or so, that's when I first kind of started getting social media traction. I renovated one for myself just because I couldn't find an interior that I liked. They were all very dark and ugly, and nothing felt like a cute bachelorette pad for a mid-20s lady. And so all I really wanted was white cabinets and some cute furniture, and that was it. It was strictly interior design based. And the internet lost their minds over just white cabinets. Like, it was crazy the amount of traction that those rigs got for a pretty simple overhaul, if I'm being honest. Like, there really wasn't a lot to them, but it melted the internet because it was such this novel concept of that an RV could look nice. And so that trend kind of, I would say, went on until COVID. And then I think when COVID happened, there was a lot of new eyes that were looking at RVs. And then a lot of people were stuck at home wanting a project. And then a lot of these backyard RV renovators popped up, and nothing against that style of RVing. I mean, I basically got started in a backyard too. Everybody has to start somewhere, but it was this wildfire of new RV renovators that popped up, which was good and bad because it shed a lot of new light on what RV interiors could be. And I think it helped open people's eyes to renovating RVs because there was so much of that happening. So then COVID kind of died down, and now we're kind of in the post-COVID era now. And what's been interesting to watch is now a lot of the requests that we are getting from clients is a lot more functionality based. It's not so much interior design based. So we just finished a rig where the client specifically wanted 2 residential combo washer dryers in their garage, and they wanted a residential bathtub, and they wanted a special rice cabinet in their kitchen, and they wanted a special nook for the cat's litter box. But then there was also the standard interior design stuff on top of it. So it's been a really interesting evolution to watch it go from strictly interior design based to now some really crazy functionality requests.
You mentioned a lot there that I'm actually going to pick apart in a little more detail as we go on. But I understand you kind of started and continued this project working with your mom. So what's it like, working as a family? What roles do you play? And how's that working out for you?
Yeah, well, I would say we do have our typical family business dynamics at times. But for the most part, we work pretty well together. I'm more of the creative, bigger picture thinker, kind of the one that comes up with all the wild ideas. And then she's a lot better at the detail and the execution. And then we have a third person on our team now too. His name's Nick, and he's kind of more of the construction side of things. So we're actually the 3 of us, and we're considering bringing on more team members too, but we're working pretty good. We all know what our strengths are, and we all kind of stay in our lanes. But we know how what we do will affect the next person. And we've kind of settled into a pretty good groove.
All right. And you also mentioned, you kind of started living in a 20-year-old RV, kind of a cheap Craigslist type RV. Mm-hmm. What were the biggest challenges you faced when you were remodeling that? And how did that experience kind of shape your business? It didn't scare you away?
Well, I went into it. I don't know if it was bravery or stupidity, to be honest with you, but so my very, very first RV that I ever had white cabinets from the factory. And long story short, I did not get the luxury of shopping for that first rig. It was either buy that one or live in the office, basically, at the time. So I didn't know what standard RVs were like. And so I bought that one, moved into it, lived in it for a year. And I was like, I kind of like this lifestyle, but I'd like one that was laid out different. And I was like, I'll just go find one that has the same cute white cabinets that has the floor plan that I want. And oh my gosh, that was in like 2015. And the longer I searched, the worse they got. And then I finally realized what I want just doesn't exist. And the only way that I can get what I want is to do it myself. And so I was like, well, you could renovate an RV, right? And so like I did a Google search and nothing came up. That's because nobody was doing it, at least publicly at the time. So I was like, you can renovate a house. You've got to be able to renovate an RV, but I couldn't figure out how. So I literally took a cabinet door down, took it into Home Depot, and I set it on the paint counter. And I said, how do I paint this? And I kind of got lucky at the time that I went in because the guy at the paint counter was a retired painter. So he really knew what he was talking about. And so he took me over and he was like, here's your primer, here's your paint, here's how you prep the surface. And so I bought all my supplies and I went home and I did it. So I just kind of moved forward with that first renovation, not knowing what I was doing and not really having anybody to go to either, because when I would ask at Home Depot, other departments what to do, they're like, are you doing a mobile home? I was like, no, like it's an RV. And so it was this big disconnect between what are the RV surfaces versus what resources do I have access to in the residential world, and then trying to like mesh them together. There were some times that I was like almost on the verge of tears trying to figure it out, but I pushed through and here we are.
And we're talking about, lifestyle and aesthetics and a certain way of living in an RV. What inspired you to turn all that into a business?
I wouldn't really say there was inspiration necessarily, as there was a pull, maybe you'd call it a push, from social media. So kind of like I mentioned earlier, the Flippin Nomad was just my personal Instagram handle because I thought the name was funny. And I was just posting about what I was doing on Instagram for a way, like for my old college friends to see what I was doing, never intending to catch any kind of following. But as fate would have it, my Instagram account was public and people that I didn't know personally started following me. And then I was like, this is really weird. Like, I don't know who these people are. They're asking me questions about these rigs. And then I had bought and sold 2 locally. And then I had shared that I had bought a third one and then I was going to renovate it and sell it. And a couple reached out and they're like, hey, we've been following what you've been doing. We love it. We love this floor plan, but we would really like to have our own personal touch on it. So they said, what would you think if we kind of pre-purchased it from you and then walked through the design with you? And I was like, I think I just sold a rig without even like having it listed for sale. Like, what in the world? Like, it was like this emotional experience for me. Like, I almost started crying. I was like, this is amazing. I can't even believe this. This is going to be like the coolest thing that's ever happened in my whole like RV career. Right. And so I was like, look, I've never done this before, like having an owner involved with me, but if you're willing to make it up with me, then let's try. And so we did that one together. And then I announced that I had the next one, and the same thing happened. And then pretty soon a waiting list formed. And then pretty soon people were like, I already own my rig and I know what I want to do to it. Can I just send it to you? And so then we changed our business model, and that's really how it all began. I owe this entire business to social media, which is crazy.
Wow. And it sounds like it really grew organically and just kind of, you put that out there and it came to you. You build it and they will come. But back to that Home Depot scene, you basically taught yourself how to remodel RVs with no formal training. And at the time, there wasn't umpteen thousand Instagram channels and YouTube channels telling people how to do it. So what was your biggest DIY learning curve? What did you encounter in the learning process that was the toughest when it comes to renovating, either aesthetically or functionally?
Yeah, there's been a lot. I would say probably just the surfaces that are in rigs. They're, like kind of that vinyl wallpaper. That was always like kind of is one of those things where it's like, well, should it stay? Because in a house, you rip wallpaper down before you do anything.
Mm-hmm.
But now, learning, I've gotten to spend 14 months in Elkhart, which is the headquarters of everything, learning the structures and watching how they get put together and asking key questions about, structures and things of that nature. So it was kind of going into it blind almost, like not really 100% knowing what I was looking at or working with, and then getting into how do you navigate weight, and then also how do you navigate the structure moving in the way that it does, and then what do you have to think about for like maintenance and accessibility. So like cable slides, they have motors behind the slide fascia,
Mm-hmm.
so the slide fascia needs to be able to come off, so you have to build the fascia accordingly. So there was just a lot of unknowns that in the early days, it was pretty rough to navigate.
Oh, so you lived kind of in this quote unquote cheap Craigslist RV at the beginning. And then at some point you started remodeling like luxury rigs. People were either bringing newer rigs to you. I was wondering how that might have affected your mindset. Like, did you ever have any sort of imposter syndrome when you were like, had the experience of cheaper rigs, but then how did you convince potential clients about your expertise before you had major projects like that in your portfolio?
Yeah, I would say I was always just kind of stair stepping. I would get comfortable at this level, and then somehow the next level would find me, through a client. And so I would, figure out what I had to figure out and get the resources to match that level. And then the next client would up me, and then I would try again. And then where it really took off was I was approached by Keystone to do a insane show rig together, and that just poured gas on our fire, and we really went hog wild to get that one built out. So that was a big stepping stone in my story.
Before we get to that, talk to me about the moment when you started to realize this was more than a side hustle. You kind of mentioned it grew organically and you're doing a rig at a time, but before we got on the air here, you mentioned you have your own shop now. So when did you kind of realize, okay, this is going to be my next career path?
Honestly, I really kind of solidified the thought in my head when that couple reached out asking if they could pre-purchase the rig, because I really didn't have that big of a following at the time, like maybe 10,000 followers or so. I wasn't huge, but I was like, wow, there really could be something here. And I kind of felt that inkling, and then they kind of helped solidify it. And then we did a couple more rigs, and then that's when Keystone called. So between those two, that's when I was like, whoa, I think I hit the nail on the head with this one.
This episode is made possible by Travelfy. Want reliable internet without the hassle? Meet Travelfy. It's portable, high-speed Wi-Fi that's ready to go wherever you are. From road trips to remote cabins. No tricky setup or permanent location required. Just plug in and you're connected. And here's the best part. No contracts, no commitments, and no reactivation fees. Pay only for the months you need. Travelfy connects to the strongest available signal among multiple major networks, so you stay online with confidence, backed by a US-based support team that knows the outdoor lifestyle. Travelfy, simplifying internet while you travel. Visit travelfy.com today. That's TRAVLFI.com. Listeners can save 15% with code RVE at checkout. It sounds like it kind of steamrolled and grew pretty quickly then.
It did. Yeah, it was a lot to handle for a while.
And you mentioned followers. So was Instagram your primary platform for building the brand? And what tactics were working best? How often were you sharing what type of content?
Yeah, Instagram was and still is our biggest platform. And I kind of feel like a dinosaur on Instagram sometimes, because we got started in 2017, 2018. And that's when Instagram was still very big with pictures, and still kind of is, I guess. I think it's a lot more video heavy now than it was back then. But I'll be the first to admit that I was kind of able to cheat Instagram, because what we did was so visual. Especially when you throw a before and after, people could slide back and forth. They could see the before and then slide the picture and see the after. And that's so visual. And Instagram is a very visual platform. And then also at the time, like I said, pre-COVID, nobody else was really doing it. So it was kind of like a double whammy in a good way, whatever that saying would be. Because like it was a novel concept and it was a very visual product that translated well on Instagram.
So what were the first signs that major brands were paying attention? We'll talk about Keystone in a minute, but was that just like blindsided you out of the blue, or were there hints? When did you kind of get the inkling that, big brands were paying attention to the Flippin Nomad?
Yeah. So Keystone was really the first, but prior to Keystone, there was a couch manufacturer that I had bought a couch from called Home Reserve. And I really liked them because they're modular. Their couches kind of go together like Legos, and they're built out of plywood basically. So you can cut them to be able to go around like wheel wells and stuff. And all of the seats have storage in them. So it's a great couch for RVs. And I had just found them, bought a love seat, put it in a rig, and then just like mentioned them or tagged them just to help followers. Well, that couch manufacturer saw that, and then they reached out and were like, we'd like to do something with you and give you a couch. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is like the coolest thing ever. Like I get a free couch, right? And so that's when I was like, oh my gosh, there really might be something to this social media thing. And then it wasn't but a few months after that, I think that I got that fateful message from Keystone and they revealed to me that they had been watching, and I almost started crying. I was like, oh my God, I would have never dreamt that Keystone would have even known that I was alive, let alone want to do something. And it was like this out of body, like incredible experience getting that message from them. And then they said, we want to fly you out to our factory. And I was like, oh my gosh, like you mentioned imposter syndrome earlier. I was like, all I wanted was white cabinets. And now all of a sudden I'm getting like invited to Elkhart. And it was crazy.
So many content creators like live for that, and they spend so much time pitching brands. And this one kind of landed in your lap just based on the content you were developing. But what doors did that open once you became known as, oh, you're the one that did that Keystone rig? What did that do for the Flippin Nomad? Where'd you go from there? What opportunities did it open up?
Yeah. It opened up a lot of opportunities, but there is kind of another key part of the Keystone story. And that is that as the business was growing and as people would come look at rigs, I recognized that they were only interested in the rigs because of their interiors, and they weren't paying attention to any structures. So like the roof could have been rotted out or the tanks could have been cracked, and they didn't care. These people were too wrapped up in the backsplash and the throw pillows to care.
Right.
And so I said, hold on, time out. We're in a position to trick people. So we need to work with rigs that have good bones and that are built right. So who's building them right? And I did a lot of research. And Montana, who's built by Keystone, kept coming up time and time again. So I said, okay, I'm going to make Montana my brand of choice. That was pre-Keystone conversation. And so I was posting a lot about Montana just as, I'm leading from my heart on this. I genuinely believe in Montana. It's the right thing to do. We love Montana, whatever. And so that's when Montana saw that. And then they reached out and said, let's do something together. So I think that's kind of a vital part of the story is I was able to work with Keystone because I genuinely believed in Montana, and I led from my heart on that. And it was just the right thing for me to do. And I don't know, call it a cosmic reward, or whatever you want to from the universe, that I got to elevate that decision even further and get to work with Keystone Corporate. So, but then from that, the story got even crazier because we built out the Ultimate Montana with Keystone. And then through that came a sponsorship with GMC as well. So GMC sent me a beautiful Denali dually to tow the Ultimate Montana with. So that was like an out-of-body experience.
Sure.
Like that beautiful truck came rolling off of a car hauler for me to tow the Ultimate Montana with. And both of them, that's going to be a highlight of my career for a very long time, because it was such like a genuine thing. I led from the heart, loving Montana, and then got to work with Keystone, and then GMC came around, and it was an incredible experience.
So speaking of the Ultimate Montana, that Ultimate RV that you built there, it was kind of an innovative leap for RV design. What was your favorite feature or design aesthetic to include, and why?
Yeah, so the mission behind the Ultimate Montana was Keystone said, we want you to push it so hard that people might not like it, because they were a little bit concerned that people would think it was going to go into mass production. So they were like, go crazy with it. Like, and so I said, okay, that's all I need to know. So we did. We went crazy with it. It has a built-in kegerator in it with a margarita machine and a wine chiller. It has a clawfoot bathtub. It has a water vapor fireplace. So it looks like real flame, but it's actually water vapor. So you can still like stick your hand through it. It's the trippiest thing. And the rig also has an 80-inch projector TV. It has a lot of crazy stuff in it, but it was built to be impractical. It was built to catch attention. You know, it wasn't built to be mass appeal or usable. It was meant to be stupid and catch attention on social media. And I think we accomplished that mission.
Sure, kind of reality show style, and you obviously went over the top on certain things. What of those crazy ideas have translated into your more, realistic builds for people, if any?
Yeah, there actually have been a few things. The bathtub has actually translated to quite a few other builds. We put a clawfoot bathtub in just because the clawfoot style was very aesthetically pleasing. It's actually made out of acrylic, so it doesn't weigh nearly as much as what a real clawfoot tub does. But what I didn't like about the clawfoot was that you have to use a shower curtain 360 degrees, and that gets old with a shower. So we've kind of taken that idea, but done like a standard built-in style bathtub like you'd see in a house. The Ultimate Montana was the first time that we installed an arch. So there's an opening above the stove that has an arch in it. And we did that just to add some dimension in there, because RVs can start feeling boxy. And that's translated. We've had several clients request arches since then. What else? So until the Montana, all of our interiors have been very white and bright and open and airy. And because Keystone asked for something different in the wow factor, I said, okay, we're going to do black. And I think that even took them by surprise. But it's very dark and moody and edgy, and it's black and gold and white in there. And we've had some other clients request moody and dark since seeing that one too. So I think people think this is a small space. I shouldn't do dark. I shouldn't do moody, but you can go dark and make a statement with it.
So I've seen, the industry kind of go from, the mottled brown paisley plaid interiors to the sleek white and the stark black. I'm thinking Brinkley comes to mind when I think this kind of stuff. But what I haven't seen is bold, outlandish colors. And I interviewed a couple of guys, the brothers actually, Warn the West, that paint rigs in that manner. They will do rave interiors and strobe lighting and lots of neon. Has anyone requested that from you, and or do you see a desire for more bold, outlandish, colorful rigs? Yeah,
we actually did have one. Coincidentally, it was for Lippert. Lippert's like the biggest supplier of RV parts in the industry. And we did a podcast studio for them, and it was a little 26-foot Grand Design Imagine travel trailer, and it had already been wrapped on the exterior with blue and orange and yellow. And so we used that color palette for the interior. But they wanted kind of like loud and bold like that. Typically, though, the clients, we haven't had any rave requests yet. No, no, but I daydream about doing like a full-blown like tailgate rig, like for an alumni, like whatever the school colors are, just go obnoxious with those colors. I daydream about doing one like that. Maybe someday it'll happen.
Fun. So you've mentioned a lot of brands in there, and I'm wondering, as much as they might have landed in your lap a couple times, I'm sure you've learned some things through these partnerships. What advice might you have for the, content creators or whatever other type of RP entrepreneurs looking to land a big brand partnership? Maybe what have you taken from some of those and pitched on your own and landed?
Yeah, that's a good question. Because I didn't pitch either of the two big ones that I got the pleasure of working with. But the approach that I've always had is to lead from the heart, and it's translated. And maybe I've gotten lucky, or maybe there is something to it. But I think a genuine, authentic approach to whatever you do, I think people can tell that on social media. And I think to have success on social media, there needs to be like I said, an authentic and a genuine and a down to earth approach. I think if you're after the following and if you're after the big name sponsorship, I don't think that translates to audiences very well, because they can kind of tell that where your heart is. So I've always tried to just share what I genuinely love, and in that season of my life, it was Montana. And the Sierra, loved it both. We actually did just recently call off our partnership with GMC for reasons outside of our control, but I loved that truck so much that I bought it. So it was just kind of one of those things that it all just made sense at the time.
That's a topic that comes up many times, or a concept rather, of all the most successful RV entrepreneurs I've talked to, authenticity. Over, drive or numbers or statistics. Being authentic and what you believe in and what you want turns out to success. But let's go back to the process a bit. Walk us through your typical process for remodeling an RV, from concept to completion. Maybe it's just a favorite project, maybe, whether it's a client who came to you or one that you're just working on. How did you learn to stand out from all of the other renovators that are kind of following your lead out there?
Yeah. I think one of the ways that I stand out is I am an RVer myself. I've been a full-timer for 11 years now. And so I've been, I've had those fridge explosions, when you have a travel day, you open the fridge and the shelf is falling out and you have, ranch dressing everywhere.
Right.
And I purposely take my rigs out, and I am not easy on my rigs. I beat them up because I want to test our building techniques out on the road. I want to make sure that, our caulk stands up to all that flexing and stuff. But as far as like the process of how clients find us, clients really do look to us to guide them on more than just their interior design. They'll say, here's how I want the space to function. What would you guys suggest? And because we can pull from our own experience as RVers, and spending so much time in Elkhart, we know structures really well. We can kind of guide them on how we're going to do the renovation. But I also have 4 pending clients right now who don't own their rigs yet, but they've already initiated the conversations with us saying, what would you advise me to go buy to then send to you guys to renovate?
And are people buying used primarily, or are people actually renovating brand new rigs?
You would be surprised at the number of brand new that we've had. In our shop right now, we've got a 2024 and a 2022. But we've had, brand new, they haven't even had license plates yet. We've had before.
So what trends are you seeing in RV design, both new models and or people wanting in their used or new models?
Yeah, that's kind of been an interesting one, because I've been watching Elkhart, as they've kind of caught on to the fact that people want, more of a residential feel in their interiors. And I'm proud of them. I really am proud of some of the manufacturers in Elkhart, because they really have stepped up and tried to get more of a residential feel in their rigs. But being that I've had the opportunity of being in Elkhart for so long, been in and out of the plants for a total of 14 months, I kind of know their side of things and the process that they go through. And if I were them, I would want to do dark interiors too, because it hides a lot. Whereas the light, bright, airy interiors bring out the imperfections in rigs. So I recognize from them that with them doing lighter and brighter interiors, it's harder for them, but they're trying, and I give that to them. So, but I think there will always be room for custom. People have personalities and they want to have their rigs personalized to whatever their taste may be. So even though the manufacturers are doing a much, much better job with interiors, I think there will always be room for customization.
So you're clearly in with certain industry folks out there. Do you ever get any pushback from the traditional, RV industry folks, or even maybe RVers for breaking the mold?
Well, I get pushback from RVers all the time. People are very opinionated, and that's kind of what kills me, is especially, we've moved past the days of when we were trying to sell rigs. So when we were buying, renovating, and then selling, there was a period where, I really did pay attention to people's opinions because I was trying to get a rig sold. But now it's like, we custom renovate these interiors for clients, and the interiors are tailored to be exactly what the clients want. And then we just share about it on social media. And then if somebody doesn't like it, they feel the need to share their opinion with us. Like,
of course,
your opinion goes nowhere. Like, all that matters is that this client wanted it and they got it, and that's all we're doing. And we're simply just sharing this. I don't care what your opinion is, and some of the interiors that we've done have been very polarizing and very controversial, like the Montana and it's black. Oh, people hated it, and they made sure to tell me, but it was job well done, right? Because it made people talk. But yeah, it's kind of funny how people want to give their interiors on, or their opinion on an interior that's a one-off and it's not theirs.
Right. You've been doing this long enough. You were pretty much, I'll say it, you were a trailblazer in the design with brighter, whiter, more residential style RV interiors. Was that your intention to kind of shake things up at the time? Or, how do you feel now about seeing your style replicated with so many other RVers, new RVs even, and our renovators out there?
Yeah, it's no, to answer your question, I never intended to, have such the impact on the industry that I did. And when I was first getting into it, 10 years ago, whatever you want to call it, I just wanted what I wanted. But I was so confused by why it wasn't out there. And the only reason I could come up with was that I was the only weirdo that wanted a bright white interior. And the demographic of RVers has kind of changed over the last decade. I would say that the average age is getting younger. But at the time, before that really kind of started happening, I just thought all RVers were of the retired age group, and that age group likes a more traditional interior. And I'm just this one weirdo out here that just wants white cabinets, and that was that. And so it still catches me by surprise, like how much my impact has had an effect on the industry. And I've had a lot of people, much like yourself, say they have seen my impact in the industry, which is not really anything I intended for. I think the industry was due for a change, and I was just one of the people who got to act as a vessel to help push them in that way. But I think it would have eventually come around regardless of my involvement.
Interesting. But you're clearly doing something right there, because it's still
I guess, yeah. Yeah.
Real quick, one more thing about the kind of the flipping, the process, the remodel, the renovation. When someone's considering a rig and they know they want something else, what years may be best? We hear a lot about post-COVID rigs. I personally understand that I would never want to buy a rig that was manufactured, 2021. What years are best for these, and what is a post-COVID rig, and what nightmares have you encountered there?
Yeah. Yeah, the poor RV industry. I mean, they had a circus going on just like everybody else during that time. But yeah, I mean, COVID did have a big effect on the industry. So of course, starting March 2020, I don't know really like when things kind of started leveling out for them. I want to guess maybe 22 or 2023. We thankfully, knock on wood, have not really had too many post-COVID horror stories that like we've had our hands on. But I know those stories are out there. So as far as advice on like somebody going to buying a rig, I would say, maybe a level of caution in that, and definitely get a rig inspected, professionally inspected, regardless, brand new, used, COVID era, not COVID era, whatever the case may be. Those certified inspectors can really sniff out some issues that would otherwise go unnoticed.
maybe we can explain for someone who might be interested or not know, like the COVID era rig. I've always thought it was like they were fewer staff and harder to staff them, and cranking out more rigs because there was a higher demand for RVs, and so they were pushing them out a lot faster. Logistics weren't getting equipment, parts and stuff. So can you kind of summarize what was happening to the industry then for us? Am I way off?
Yeah. So I think the industry was clipping along at a good pace, like 2019, right before COVID. And then when COVID happened, everybody was sitting at home kind of twiddling their thumbs with nothing to do. And the RV industry exploded because everybody was like, I can't go travel internationally, but I can go buy an RV and still social distance. So the demand went through the roof. Like there are stories that dealerships completely sold out when they normally have months worth of inventory. Well, then the manufacturers, they were faced with all of the same social distancing requirements that everybody else in the globe were faced with. And then they were also faced with product shortages. So, just like all the other manufacturing, for anything and everything, air conditioners, refrigerators, flooring, sinks, countertops, like all these components that go into these rigs, they were having a really hard time sourcing that. Mm-hmm. So the demand went through the roof, but the supply was very hit or miss. Plus, RVs are built basically 100% by humans. And so you have to deal with the human element of the social distancing and people getting sick and da-da-da-da-da. And so it really caused a lot of chaos in the industry. And I think they're kind of finally now fully getting their feet back under them and getting back to their new normal now.
Good to hear. Let's switch gears for a minute and talk about kind of lifestyle and motivation. What you're doing is basically a lifestyle business. You're designing RVs to fit certain lifestyles, maybe putting in more office space for RV entrepreneurs, that sort of thing. But you are still a full-time RVer, but I know you have a shop where you do your work. So you've built this business while living on the road. How do you stay grounded while managing logistics, production at a facility, clients, and travel? How are you doing that?
Yeah, it can be a lot to juggle. I am a full-time RVer. I live in an RV full-time. And my heart is on the road. And there was a period where we tried to do this business mobily, where we built out a toy hauler and tried to take our tools with us. And that it didn't work. There's way too many logistics involved. And so we were like, we being my mom and I, she had her own truck and trailer. I was like, we've got to go stationary. Like, this is crazy. And so we found our ideal shop space here in St. George, Utah. And so we're getting this facility built out. And so I am very stationary right now, but I'm still like keeping my foot in the door of full timing, basically, because my heart is on the road. And at the end of the day, I want to be on the road traveling. And it does kill me to have to be stationary the way that I am. And so the way I bridge that gap is to continue to be a full timer, just stationary at the moment. So I would like to figure out a way to, not have to be in the shop so much, be able to get out on the road a little bit more. But for now, in this season, it works. But I think there will always be an RV in my life one way or another, or travel in my life in some fashion. It just kind of ebbs and flows of how much I'm able to actually go out and be, a nomadic soul out on the road versus stationary.
RVing is more than just a hobby. It's a community. When you join RV Life, you're not just gaining access to a suite of tools. You're becoming part of a vibrant community of fellow RV enthusiasts. Share your experiences, learn from others, and make your RV journey even more memorable. Visit rvlife.com to become a part of our community and start making connections that last a lifetime.
So as much as that stationary part may be nagging you a bit right now, what's the most fulfilling part of the work you're doing?
The thing that I love the most about what I'm doing is being able to craft a solution for clients who can't otherwise get their problem solved anywhere else, because they're like, we like this portion of this rig and we like this portion of that rig, and we really have this like one specific request that we want, but that doesn't exist in any rig. Like the client I mentioned earlier who wanted 2 residential combo washer dryers in their rig. That's like very fulfilling to me, and especially to be able to do it in 400 square feet, where most people look at it and they're like, I don't see it. I don't see how we're going to go forward with this. And I'm like, I got it. I'm like, it's all in my head. Like let's go. So that's very satisfying. And then we've had clients cry like happy tears when they get their rigs back because they love the interior and they're appreciative of what we've put into it. And so that really makes your heart full.
You may have just answered my next question here, but I was going to ask, what still challenges you?
Balancing weight, honestly, like that. I will battle that battle until the day I'm done with this business. It's just so tricky because you know, when we build out cabinetry, for example, residential cabinetry is built out of 3/4 inch plywood because weight's not an issue, right? But you start adding a whole bunch of 3/4 inch plywood cabinetry into RVs and you can get really heavy. So then that gets tricky of like, okay, do we build with 1/4 inch? But then that's not nearly as strong and, you know, it doesn't feel as hardy, but it needs to be lightweight to be in these rigs. And so it is a constant figurative and literal balancing act of weight.
Thank you for considering that, because I've seen some renovators out there that will just go in and put the residential fridge and the residential couch and just do that. Did you just know that all along, or how did you learn the fact that you need to keep that in mind?
Yeah, very, very early on, when I really like kind of admitted my curiosity in RVs, there was a local RV tech in my hometown of Boise, Idaho, where I got started. His name's Jake. I still love Jake to this day. I would be like kind of that little shadow that would follow him around and learn structures. And I knew that weight was important in RVs. And then he really kind of helped drive it home for me. And then as I got to travel more, you know, you just kind of understand what comes with traveling on the road, which is kind of where being an RVer myself, that experience helps the business more so than somebody who doesn't have that experience. And then we have kind of a different approach with weight depending on what the rig is and how the rig gets used. You know, we've got a 45-foot momentum toy hauler in right now, and the client really wanted a real tile backsplash. And we're like, well, you know, that rig can handle weight, and they only use the rig on the weekends, and we're good. Like, we're good on weight. We can add an extra, 100 pounds or whatever it's going to be on a backsplash because this rig can handle it, and the way the client uses it, it's fine. But like if we had like a little single axle come in that was used by a family of 4, and so that means a lot of stuff, and a single axle can't handle a lot of weight, and they wanted a real tile backsplash, I would tell them no.
Smart. So you're dealing with each case, looking at the use scenario. And I wonder, as a woman in a male-dominated field, or predominantly or previously male-dominated field of RV tech and maintenance, was there any point when you realized the industry was taking you seriously, and how did that?
Yeah. Honestly, I would say with the phone call from Keystone, that's when I was like, and they revealed to me that they had been watching for several months before they reached out. And so that's when I was like, oh gosh, like we're moving up to the big leagues now. And then since then, I've seen a lot of stuff where I don't want to necessarily like make accusations to other manufacturers where I'm like, that was my idea, thank you. And I can point to the rig that came out of, and you just took the idea and did it. I don't want to necessarily be accusatory like that. But, there's a lot of things where I can point, here was my rig, and then 12 months later, there it was in mass production. And then here it was in my rig, 18 months later, there it was in mass production. So there's been quite a bit of that, but that's just kind of how the industry is. And they steal from each other too. It's just kind of the nature of the beast.
Well, imitation is the greatest form of flattery, right? But
that's what they say. Yeah.
Got to get you at some points, I'm sure. But they're a dime a dozen now. I see people on Instagram or wherever remodeling their rig. What would you say to someone who wants to get into either flipping RVs or redesigning RV interiors, but they don't know where to start?
Yeah, and it's interesting that you ask that, because I have asked that of myself. Like if I didn't have the experience that I did in the last 10 years, how would I start this business? I really think about the only way you could get started now would be to buy a rig, renovate it, and then sell it. But then as people come look at it, you would really have to be conscious about kind of capturing them as potential future clients. And you could even say something to the effect of, well, you mentioned that this rig doesn't work for you, but this is what we do with this business, and we could maybe go find you another rig and get you exactly what you want. Would that be something that you'd be interested in? So I think you would have to, start that way to start now.
That comes back
Which
to
is how I kind of got started.
Yeah, and it comes back to authenticity. And I was wondering how important you think storytelling and personal branding is when building your business.
Oh, it's everything, because people buy from people. And when your personality shines through your business, people recognize that, and they click with you or they don't click with you, whatever the case may be. But sometimes I really feel like there's almost too much of a blurry line between me and the Flipping Nomad, because it's like, is the Flipping Nomad a business or is it me personally? But like I am the face of the Flipping Nomad, and I'm the one that's kind of that vessel that delivers it on social media. But I think, personality, and like I said, people buy from people, and especially in this day and age, it's so easy to do on social media.
And there's such a fine line between personality and brand, especially when it comes to, the entrepreneurs and the solopreneurs that are making things happen for other people like this. But I wonder what's next for the Flippin Nomad. Do you have any new exciting builds or partnerships or projects you can talk about?
No new partnerships, but I did just buy a new personal rig. I will say I'm very excited about that. Have not been able to pick it up yet, but I don't know when this episode is going to air, but I'll get it next week. We have a potential celebrity client coming, not finalized though. It could still absolutely fall through. But that one's kind of exciting. And then we have this client, they are going to get a toy hauler and send it to us to upfit the garage to haul 15 parrots.
Wow.
Yeah.
I've heard of mobile dog groomers and such, but a mobile parrotaria, or whatever you call it. Aviary.
Very different use case of a rig, but we're so excited about it. The client is so much fun, just good people. And that one's going to be different for sure, but we're super excited about it.
So you mentioned a few different things, and that's kind of wild out there. You mentioned celebrities. If you could design a dream rig for someone, like whether it be an influencer or some celebrity, a fictional character, what would you start with and what would you do to it?
I would love to do, and we've gotten to do 2 of them, promotional rigs for corporations where they just want the wow factor, and like the crazier the better, like functionality aside, let's put, like there was one idea that I had to do, like, are you familiar with Harvest Host?
Yeah.
Yeah, so they have an option where you can stay at a golf course. I was like, well, I think that'd be super fun to turn a rig into a mini golf course inside as like a promotional rig for them, like where, there would be like the little like putt, holes, or I had even visualized something where you put the ball into like a little thing and it like sucks it up like the tubes at the bank, and it shoots across the rig, and then it comes down like a little gumball thing, down on the other side of the rig. Like no bed in it, no shower, no standard RV stuff, just a wild promotional rig, something that you couldn't have even imagined an RV get turned into. That would be my dream.
I'm seeing one of those immersive driving ranges in the back of a toy hauler, where it's actually an wrapped video with full on video, and you have a net in the back and a little like practice driving range right there. So I see another brand relationship building there. Where can our listeners follow up on all this fun stuff that's going to be happening with you and your latest projects?
Yeah, so we're biggest on Instagram. We're a little bit on TikTok. We've only ever posted one YouTube video 4 years ago, so there's not much going on there. And then we're a little bit on Facebook too, and our website, everything is the Flipping Nomad. But we're strongest on Instagram.
Cortni, thank you so much for joining me. Do you have any last words of wisdom for RVers looking to build any sort of business from the road?
Not really business wise. Entrepreneurship, it's a journey. It has its highs and it has its lows, just like everything. But especially if you can figure out a way to use it as a catalyst to get on the road, mine has kind of taken me off the road. It's done the opposite. Then do it, because road life is beautiful and it's magical. And if that's what's calling to your soul, then you need to follow that. But I will give a little piece of advice to anybody looking to renovate their rig. And what I would say is just do it. Like, a lot of people get so hung up on what the resale value is going to be, but we've sold rigs for 2.5 times their book value before because people loved the interior so much and they thought it was worth it. So don't let resale hold you back. Don't let what the manufacturer had slated on that rig hold you back. Like, it's your rig, customize it, love it, go use it, have fun.
Fantastic. Magical indeed, like you mentioned. I want to thank you for keeping that magic alive for so many other RVers out there. We look forward to following up and seeing these new renovations out there. So, have you ever looked at RV renovation on Instagram and thought, wow, that looks like fun, I could do that? Well, Cortni's story might have inspired you and given a good reality check. That's because behind every before and after post, there is a business built on hard decisions, heavy logistics, and a whole lot of trial and error. Cortni is living proof. She reminded us that authenticity isn't just a buzzword, it's a business strategy. Social media can create opportunities, but real growth happens when you really deliver. Great RV renovation is about structural know-how and weight balance as much as it is about good design. And sometimes the best way to start is just to figure it out one mistake at a time. Thanks for listening. Drop by the RVE community group on Facebook to let us know what you think. We'll catch you on the next episode of the RV Entrepreneur. And if you're dreaming about starting a creative RV business of your own, just remember,
people buy from people.
Hey RVers, let's be real. Your RV showerhead isn't great. And even if you swapped it out for something better, chances are it's just a shinier version of the same old thing. And if you're really lucky, those stiff hoses kind of let you get wet, but definitely not where you want it. That's where WaterPick comes in. A global leader in water technology, they've designed the Transform RV showerhead to change the way you shower on the road, making it easier and more efficient to shower in tight RV spaces. While other RV showerheads have limited spray adjustments, the Transform RV's unique 360-degree pivoting head allows you to customize to any spray angle without having to remove it from the bracket. This means you can reach your desired spray area and shower with both hands free. This showerhead doesn't just work better, it feels better. It's engineered to deliver powerful, consistent water flow. Its multiple spray settings are optimized to get the most out of your water tank. And with the new trickle switch, you can conserve water without that shocking blast of cold or hot water when you turn it back on. It's available in white, chrome, and nickel. The WaterPick Transform RV showerhead is ready to upgrade your RV shower. Head over to Amazon and check it out now.